guys, we are leaving Barolo. Ciao. First of all, where are we going?
We are going to visit a good friend, a good guy, Lorenzo, that is the last generation of the Azelia winery, which is Scavino. Then we are going to a mid-highest quality winery, and we will, we start with a midi luxury style that is not bad. And I think that after a quickly touch in the cellar, we will go to spend some time in the vineyards, and of course we will film it, okay? We will start to ask him unpolite and unconventional things, okay?
As always.
Easy. Come on. Allora, ciao, buongiorno, and this is maybe one of the first touch of pruning time, like I told you in the first video. We are in a marvelous place. In front of us there's Castiglione Falletto. The vineyard is San Rocco, and is a great single vineyard owned by Azelia, that is a wonderful cellar in Castiglione Falletto, and we are lucky to have with us Lorenzo directly from the family. Then ciao Lorenzo, and thanks to be part of our funny project.
Ciao Stefano. Well, hi everybody. It's a pleasure to show you our San Rocco vineyard. It's a beautiful day today. We are in the snow, but it's actually quite warm. And just look at the view of the Castiglione Falletto hill, which is right in front of us. So it's always a joy for us to be working here. As Stefano was saying, we're doing the pruning,
Yeah?
which is a very important phase of the winter for us, because we are working for the new vintage. So it's really the first step for us.
You want to tell us something about, okay, you are a superstar, okay, Azelia is very famous. We talk about something very VIP, okay, guys, not something basic. San Rocco is one of the 5 single vineyards that the cellar manage, and I can see that there's a wonderful part of the label where you write that is the 100th time that you make wine. You want to tell us something about family winemaking and a little bit of history?
Yes, that is a very special label. It's a special edition label. And as you can see, it is handwritten 2017, because this is a preview.
Yes.
It's a new vintage, which is going to be released in the spring.
Yeah, we will try for you, okay? We will do the sacrifice to try before, because we want to be sure to give you something right, okay? You need to pay us for that, okay? Remember.
It's a super preview that you have.
Yeah.
So it's a special edition label, Centesimo Anniversario, 100th anniversary, because last year in 2020 we celebrated the centenary of our winery, and we are very proud of this. We are one of the oldest families in our area, and we're here thanks to our great-great-grandfathers who have always been farming our hills in a very poor region, because Piemonte in the past was very, very poor. I represent the 5th generation in my family. I'm an only child, so it's a big responsibility, but I'm quite used to it.
Yes. But you are in the moment of your life that you can do bullshit without too much consequence, but it's better that you don't do too much, right? You are in the middle way. Why?
Especially with my father, you know, the boss is always there controlling, so under pressure.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, Barolo is our biggest production, because we are based in Castiglione Falletto. The winery is in Castiglione Falletto. We actually farm more than 5 single vineyards, because some of them are used for our Barolo Classico.
Yes.
And then we have other 4 single vineyards which are vinified separately.
Okay.
And these are Bricco Fiasco in Castiglione Falletto, which is our historical vineyard. Here in Serralunga we have the San Rocco, where we are right now. We have the Barolo Margheria, the new addition last year, Barolo Cerretta, which was dedicated to the centenary of the winery. And then we have a special Barolo Riserva, always coming from here, from Serralunga, which is the Bricco Voghera, which we make only in the best vintages only.
This can be, I think, interesting, and is also my curiosity. You are a very institutional and very famous name in Castiglione Falletto, but seems that you have a crush for Serralunga that you love a lot. Also last year Cerretta was the last one, and is another time in Serralunga that represent also for the Barolo lover a completely different world than when you think to the Grand Cru in Castiglione Falletto that are more polite and elegant. This is more engine, more muscular.
Powerful, yes.
When born this kind of love, and why you like to have this kind of vineyards in the location of Serralunga?
That's my father's love. Because of course, being based in Castiglione, Bricco Fiasco is our historical vineyard, so our great-great-grandfathers started there. My father loves that vineyard, but also he started to get interested in Barolos coming from Serralunga d'Alba, and that was in the early 90s, when in Serralunga you could find very, very few wineries. Only actually the local wineries of the region were there, like 3 or 4 wineries. He fell in love with these Barolos because of their energy, because of the power that they have, which is something very hard to find in the other villages.
Yes, you're right.
Serralunga has such a different soil, and that's due to the clay. It's a combination of white clay and gray clay, which give this structure, this really aging potential, which is amazing. So he started with this vineyard, San Rocco.
Then the first vintage of the San Rocco for you was?
95.
95,
My father was able to buy San Rocco in 94, and then the first release was 95. He was able to find this small plot of land on sale, so he decided to buy it.
Maybe in the 90s was a little bit easier than today.
Still, they were still expensive, of course, but not the prices that we have today. But imagine, at that time, my father didn't tell his father, my grandfather, that he decided to buy the vineyard. So at the beginning, it was like hiding this vineyard. But you know, how can you hide a vineyard? Because practically, he was driving up to Serralunga every day because he had to farm the vineyard.
Maybe the excuse was a woman. I don't know, something like that.
Maybe. But after a while, my grandfather was like, "What are you doing in Serralunga d'Alba every day?" So he had to tell him. And at first, my grandfather was very, surprised and also pretty upset because for the standards of the time, nobody used to invest in land outside of the native commune. So it was something very brave, very unusual also. But my grandfather, after tasting the first vintage, he was completely satisfied because the quality was incredible. So it turned out to be an amazing decision.
So, tell me something, just something technical about how big is the vineyards, how mediumly is old, and which kind of work you do inside.
So here in total in the San Rocco we have about 2.5 hectares, and we make around 6,000 bottles, which is very, very little, and that's due to the age of the vines. As you can see, these are very old vines. Average age, I would say, between 65 and 70 years old.
Then you mean that is not a thing that is a consequence of a pruning, of a selection of bunches, but is an automatic reduction that the old vineyards give to you. That's the maximum.
Yes, it's actually both. First of all, of course, the age of the vines, because you know that older vines produce less. And then also we do a hand selection in the summer, the grain harvest, when we further reduce some of the grapes. It's a very small reduction, of course, because already naturally the yields are low, but we make sure that we use the very best bunches.
Also for have something to sell, because
Otherwise it would be, you know.
And the plant seems to be, some vine seems to be very, very old, you know, something like that. Then we talk about, like you say me before, first vintage was 1995, but when you bought the vineyard was present, and then?
Yes, the vines were already here. So that's why my father, they were in very good conditions. They were very healthy, very well kept. So my father decided to keep them.
Okay.
My father and my grandfather were like, we can keep these vines. There's no need to replace them.
Okay.
And that's why they're now 65 or 70 years old already. Some of them, like that one is already like more than 80 years old. You can see that from the size of the trunk.
And we talk about a Prephyloxera.
Some of them are Prephyloxera. Not all of them, because the youngest ones are not, but the oldest ones are. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, and this
I'm sure that not many of you know these things, because it's a very, very fascinating side of this kind of wine, and means that many of these plants are not Lampia, but they are different clone of.
we actually have only the old clones, which were the only ones used in the past. Lampia mainly, and Miquette.
Okay, yeah, nice.
And this is for all our vines, all our vineyards, because we only, as you know, we only work with older vines. My father is very strict, very hard on that. We don't want to have young vines. So we try to keep the vines until they die naturally. Even if it is much more expensive, they require more care, more time, more attention, but we want to keep them. So in the past, the only clones which we're using were Lampia and Miquette. And those are also the ones which work the best, because they have smaller clusters and also smaller berries. So there's more concentration.
See, this is a thing that you know, we always push about it when we spoke about quality wines. It's not just a question of how many money you spend for your barrel, or in which way you work, or how big is your reduction, but everything belongs to the roots. Sometimes have something like that is not comparable to a vineyard in a beautiful location, but much more younger. Then sometimes the quality in our area, I'm sorry for the rest, but belong to history, because is a connection between how long are your roots and how is the quality of the bunches that you are working. And then when you have a winery that have also a great care and a great attention during the vinification and the aging, the final result is something special, but it's always a mix of different things.
That's very, very important. Also, older vines have always more resistance. So it's true, they produce less, but also they are more resistant, for instance, concerning diseases or warmer vintages, colder years. There is very little variation because they have deeper roots down into the soil. These vines go down for 4, 5, even 6 meters into the soil. So down there, the conditions are pretty stable. It could happen that we don't have rain for the entire summer, or on the contrary, we have a very rainy summer. For these vines, there is almost no difference.
Wow.
Because they are so deep.
You want to show us something with your scissor, what you will do in the place in the next days? We can see that everything is just cut away. What means?
So here you can see that we have already pruned these vines. You can see the cuts already. And the pruning is essential to, the first step for the next vintage. So during the pruning, I will show you. So this is the trunk of the vine. This is the old fruit-bearing cane. So this was here attached. You see all the shoots here. Each shoot had one cluster.
For understand, that was the cane that give you the bunches of the 2020.
Correct.
Right.
2020 vintage.
I study, right? Yeah.
There is no need of this fruit-bearing cane anymore, so that's why we decided to cut it.
Okay.
And now we have to work on the next vintage. This is the one which is going to be used for this year. So this is the new fruit-bearing cane. You see, normally we have a pretty short pruning because we leave 8 or 9 buds maximum.
Okay.
And this is pretty short and this is a way to control the amount of production.
Okay.
Because if you cut longer, you would have more clusters
yes.
with more buds. So we leave this one, which is going to be folded like this, and that's going to be the new fruit-bearing cane.
Okay.
We also leave one spur.
Yeah. This one.
Yeah, which is a shorter, particularly it's a shorter shoot with 1, 2, or 3 buds, depending. And this is going to be used for the next year. One shoot is going to produce a new fruit-bearing cane, and the first bud is going to produce another spur. And it's always like this. This is the way to maintain a pretty short trunk.
That's right, because in Nebbiolo it's very important that the old part of the wood remain very short. It means that the branches, the best branches are more close to the roots, right?
Exactly, yes, because they receive more nourishments.
And I know that at home many people thinking to these things, and I want to ask you, in which way you decided that this one will be the cane with the responsibility to be the product for the new vintage? When you decided?
So it's not an easy decision.
Yeah.
Actually, pruning requires a lot of experience and training.
Yeah.
Because if you select the cane which is going to produce the new vintage in the right way, then you will have the quality.
Okay.
So you just have to look at the vine, you have to look at the vigor of the vine. We have stronger vines, we have weaker vines, depending. And then you have to look at the quality of the cane.
Yes.
So some are double. You see, like this one, this is not correct. This is not right, because it's divided into 2 shoots. So it's going to be hard to use it as a fruit-bearing cane. And then you have to, usually the first buds coming out of the trunk are the best buds, and they can be used for the fruit-bearing cane because they are closer to the trunk. And then you have to select one cane which is pretty close to the trunk, also because of the height of the trunk. We want to keep the trunk pretty low. Yeah. So this is normally the height, because then you have to put a fruit-bearing cane like this.
And when will be the moment to curve the cane?
You can do it right away, so right after pruning, or a little bit later. Normally we do it a little bit later because we prefer to prune all our vines, and then we have more time to do it. So we prune, then another step, we remove all the shoots which have been cut, and then we're gonna fold the fruit-bearing cane. So that's practically in early spring.
Is more stressful or complicated do something like that when you have old vine, or more or less the technical and the approach that you have is the same in a vineyard 10 years old or in a 80 years old?
It's much more difficult with older vines.
Okay.
It's much more difficult because they grow in strange shapes.
Yeah, we can see, yes.
So it's not easy. Usually younger vines are straight, you know. These are more, exactly, you can see that one, which have been replaced. That's straighter, so it's easier to prune it. Older vines always require more time. Also because they have more shoots, you have to select the right shoot. It's not easy. And then also, usually they are a little bit higher, because by the time they get older, they get higher. And so it's important to select lower canes. That's why it's more difficult.
That's right. Okay, we talk a lot, but now is the practical moment, okay? For the financial insurance of La Vite Turchese, I will not touch nothing, okay? Then the scissors are in the hands of Lorenzo, and then he will show us something about the things that we saw before, okay? Then come here to see, and attention.
So practice. Here we have an old vine, and you see there are no cuts. We still have to prune it. First of all, we have to look for the new fruit-bearing cane. This is the old one.
Yes.
And this one we have to cut it away. But first of all, we have to look for the new cane. This is the old spur. The old spur with 2 buds. This is the first one, and this is the other one. Usually the spur is used to determine the new fruit-bearing cane. In this case, we can say that this is a perfect shoot to be the new fruit-bearing cane.
Okay, this is the man with the responsibility. This is the vintage 2021.
So let's prepare the new fruit-bearing cane. You see, we have to clean it here,
Yeah.
all the way here. And also you have to look at the buds. You see here the buds are in very good conditions. They are healthy.
Yeah.
Then we have to count the number of buds. Normally I said 8 or 9 buds.
Okay, yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay.
In this case, 9 is a perfect length. And this is going to be folded, and this is going to be the new fruit-bearing cane for the following vintage.
Barolo 2021.
Exactly.
Hey, man.
Then we have to think about 2022.
Yeah.
This is the one for 2022.
Okay.
It's lower compared to this one, and this is essential. In this way, you maintain the same height.
Okay.
So this is going to be the new spur. We normally leave 1 or 2 buds.
Yeah.
It's like this.
Okay.
And all the rest, it's not necessary anymore.
Ah, look, it's beautiful. How is very, very green and good inside. Seems to be dry outside, but Nebbiolo is funny. It's very ligneous outside, but inside is something like that, no?
Yeah. And the green wood means that it's very healthy.
Understand?
The healthiness of the vines, you can see that from the inside of the wood. If it's grayish or also brown, the vine is probably dead. It's either dying or having some problems, some health problems.
Then more Nebbiolo, good, healthy, you know? Then thinking on, okay? Spend your money for your healthiness.
Barolo is good for your health.
Of course.
Let's cut away the old fruit-bearing cane. So normally one cut here and then right here.
It's hard.
This is the hardest part.
Yeah.
There we are.
Wow.
So this is the pruning. This is the vine pruned. All these shoots are going to be removed. And normally we do it in another step because it takes more time.
Yeah.
So you just cut away all the shoots and you remove them because you want it to be clean for the new vintage.
Wow, seems to be very easy. But it's not easy.
It's not easy actually. It requires a lot of time, a lot of experience, training, and especially because every vine is different. So there is no rule. Of course, there is a general rule, but every vine requires a different treatment. For instance, 2 buds can be too much for some spurs in some vines. 3 in others can be, too short. So you just have to adjust to each vine.
How was your first pruning?
It was I started with I remember at that time with my father and my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Very relaxing day.
Very. I told you, no pressure. So, you just get used to it little by little. But at the beginning, even to, understand what's going on, it's hard.
You did some mistake?
Of course, always, all the time. I'm still doing mistakes, my father says all the time.
And your father told you, hey, no worries, relax, right?
Of course. Never heard my father saying that.
Of course. No, guys, very hard things. Also because seems to be very sad, but that was the worker of a vintage. I mean, everything that we will find in the bottle depend of what we cut away now, and also the responsibility to let these plants. Also, we don't say a bullshit if we say that the longevity is also depend also to the skills of who do the pruning, right?
For sure, because for instance, if the pruning is not correct, the vine will suffer.
Okay.
The vine will suffer, it will have troubles with the production and also with the healthiness of the buds. So it's essential to prune. It's a sort of a cleaning for the vines. And the pruning is essential also for the quality of the grapes.
Yeah.
Because this is, by the way, this way of pruning is called single guyot, which is practically the only one used here in Piemonte usually for high quality production. And this is essential because we have more exposure to the sunlight, we have air circulation in between the leaves, optimal exposure to the sunlight, which is really, really essential for the tannins, and also for the health of the vines.
I want to ask to Lorenzo just last things, because is the chance to ask to you I mean, it's rare have in the winery today 3 generation, because you have still in this moment a grandfather, your father, and then there's you. Now you work in a highest quality mentality, then you count every single bud, and then you maintain everything shorter with a mentality of do maybe less but better. That was a things that still today is a struggling, is a fighting with the first generation, I mean your grandfather, or is a kind of compromise that you found step by step? How is the vision?
So I can say that it's always been different for my family, because when I was young, I remember my grandfather, because he passed away 20 years ago now. So, but there was a moment when we were 3 generations, and I remember him as being a very open-minded man.
Okay.
Something very, very rare at that time. My father was always, it was easy for him to experiment, to try new things, because my grandfather was always allowing him to try new things.
Perfect.
At that time, the old generation wasn't like that. They were more closed-minded. They were not thinking about new technology.
See, that's why I ask you. We have today many examples of grandfathers still alive that when they see green harvest or selection of bunches, they get crazy.
No, my grandfather, even my grandmother, she's still alive, super open-minded. And she, doing the green harvest for her, at the beginning was something
strange.
Yes. But after a few years, she realized that the quality changed completely. So really, really important for them to, be able to work along with my father, to improve the quality with new technology in the cellar.
Okay, from these 2 beautiful guys, we can tell you ciao. For today, we worked a lot and very, very hard. I'm so tired, and it's time to come back home, and maybe we will meet Lorenzo at the times during the year, because there's, like you understand, many things to do. And then for now, thanks a lot for your time, and
ciao a tutti, grazie Stefano, thank you for being here, and hope to have you here one day.
Sì, of course, soon, eh? Ciao ragazzi.
Ciao.